Hello, viewers, and welcome to the latest GI Huddle. I'm with Joe Pisano, CEO of Jade Entertainment and Gaming. Joe, thanks very much for joining me.
My pleasure, Tim. Good to be here.
Yeah, really looking forward to talking to you about the company, your role, and Asian markets, the emphasis on markets, S plural, different regions. To start off with, you've been at Jade over 13 years. Can you walk us through kind of a history of your time with the company and the company overall?
Yeah, we founded the company in 2009, and it was primarily a product distribution company. We represented a number of slot manufacturers, systems providers, um, gaming equipment peripherals, and initially it was mainly here in the Philippines, and that was our focus market. We then expanded out to other Asian markets. We have offices in Kuala Lumpur, Ho Chi Minh City. Um, we're registered in Macau. We're licensed in Saipan, and soon we're expanding out to Colombo in Sri Lanka. Um, and that's where we initially started. Pre-COVID, we decided to expand our offering into sports betting. And we started with retail sports betting, with our first installation being at Okada, Manila.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got hit by COVID. So during the COVID period, because all retail was closed down, casinos were closed down, we lobbied the government for remote gaming, which is an expansion of the land-based into the online arena. So now we have Jade Sportsbet, which is both retail and online being an extension of land-based properties, and that's here in the Philippines. We are now about to launch fantasy sports, both here in the Philippines and also Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka will be fantasy cricket. And here in the Philippines, we're looking at fantasy esports and fantasy NBA when the season recommences. And they're primarily acquisition tools
Yeah.
to build our database.
How popular is fantasy sports across Asia? Obviously, for example, a country like India, and as you mentioned, cricket specifically, fantasy would be quite big. Obviously, the acquisition model is something that in the US, FanDuel and DraftKings originally did
Yes.
fantasy first and then sports betting.
If we look at the Indian market, the biggest operator there, Dream 11,
Mm.
I believe they have 150 million customers in their database, active customers. They would be they are the biggest in the world when it comes to fantasy and the number of users. Um, there is a MPL, which is another company, ADA, with 95 million players. So in the Indian market, fantasy is huge, and it's big because you don't have legal sports betting there yet. So
Hmm.
access, and it's mostly cricket. There
Yeah.
is some football, but mostly cricket. The interest in cricket and participating in some level of the sport through fantasy, very popular in that market. Uh,
Yeah, I was gonna well actually if you wanted to say a bit more about fantasy sports, I was gonna ask a different question, but if there's more on fantasy sports, please don't let me interrupt.
well, when we look at the cricket is big in India. When we look at when we looked at the Philippine market, we decided that basketball would be the prime sport here, and then esports as a growing sport. We want to give fantasy esports a go here in the Philippines. If we go to the Malaysian market or Vietnam, we will be looking at football there. So basically looking at what works in the market, what the interests are in that market,
Mhm.
and following that.
Yeah, I was going to say, before you even mentioned the many different sports there, everything that you've talked about so far, we've got different markets, different countries. Obviously, something we might get into, different languages, different dialects, different sports, different verticals. I mean, there's a lot for you and your company to keep on top of. And I guess how challenging is that with obviously you've got different regulations. Sometimes, as you say, for example, sports betting isn't legal in India, so there'll be um, markets that are regulating. How do you kind of keep on top of it all?
We only operate sports betting in Philippines, um, mainly because besides Singapore, this is the only regulated market for sports betting. Other markets throughout the region are grey markets, and we don't engage in those markets. Compliance-wise, compliance is pretty much the same whether you're here in the Philippines or whether you're in Malaysia. The same principles apply. We look at the local laws and local regulations, and we work with those laws and regulations. That's why in Sri Lanka we've gone with fantasy and not live sports.
Yeah, of course. And actually, you were at a panel at G2E Asia, and you talked about how compliance pretty much it's equal to sustainability because well, I guess that's a self-explanatory phrase. Do you think
Yes.
that's how important do you think that message is for the industry? Because I guess just in any business, you could look at short-term profit, but ultimately sustainability and I guess lifetime value is surely the winner long term.
Yeah. I mean, if you in this market, if you can go after the black market or the grey market for short-term profits, but if you want to build a business which will be sustainable for 10 years, for 20 years, you need to, one, follow um, local laws, regulations, not only national laws, but local laws. You need to work with the local communities. Um, you need to have your responsible gaming in place. So all your responsible gaming policies and tools. You need to have all your AML controls. Jade is AML Council certified. Every one of our staff has gone through AML Council training. So we take compliance very serious.
Yeah, in terms of the kind of you mentioned the 10 years plus long term, for any kind of sustainable gaming business in Asia. I know we've talked about a lot of markets already. Are there any, I guess, not necessarily emerging, but growing markets that you think, all the ones even you've mentioned so far, which ones excite you the most?
India.
Hmm.
India. I mean, if India regulates 1.4 billion people, 8 countries in one, 8 languages, um, different cultures from north to south. Your product offering will need to be customized um, to address all the markets. You would start with one market and build it from there. One market within the country and
Hmm.
build it from there. Um, just one state. Um, there'd be no reason you couldn't get 100 million in your customer base, just from one state alone. So that would be the most exciting. Emerging markets, we can see a lot of discussion around Thailand. In recent months, they've been trying to address both land-based gaming and online gaming in Thailand. Malaysia, they've been discussing online gaming and sports betting for the past 2 years. And we believe in next year there'll be movement there, especially on sports betting. We've seen movement in Japan with the awarding of the contract in Osaka, and hopefully we'll see some movement there on sports betting in Japan as well. Even Macau now is reviewing their policy around sports betting to allow, more what we call Vegas style sports betting. At the moment, they're limited, I think, to football and horse racing.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the Macau sports betting angle would definitely be interesting, and I suppose I don't know how realistic it is, but if there's ever online in Macau, that would it would be interesting to see how that would change things as well. In terms of obviously Jade and the Philippines, how would you kind of as someone in that region, how would you kind of describe the market at the moment and how it's I guess recent growth, but in terms of prospects for future growth?
Well, the Philippine market, there's a lot of growth in the land-based gaming at the moment. The properties are well above pre-COVID numbers. We see new integrated resorts under construction. Solaire North's under construction, due to open next year. New Star Cebu has opened, and we can see expansion there. Vista in south of Manila is a new $2 billion integrated resort. Westside City next to Okada is another integrated resort. So we can actually see growth in this market in new properties for the next 5 years. And then on the online or remote gaming, which is new to the domestic market, we're currently going through the education process of players that have been used to bricks and mortar and walking into properties to play. So now they have access to their mobile and being able to play and watch sports on their mobile and follow their sports. So there will be an education process over the next year or two. But I can see the sports betting market here growing over the next 5 years. We're at 111 million people. It's a young population. They love basketball. They love tennis. Wimbledon will be a big week for us. The Philippines has a history with tennis. Governor Davis, he was the US governor here in the Philippines, and we've all heard of Davis Cup. The tennis ranch used to be maybe half a kilometer from my home, and where Lou Hogue and John Newcomb and Ken Rosewald, Lacoste, all used to come here to train, get their tennis elbows fixed up. So Philippines has a big history with tennis.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned online and digital, and obviously quite recently the Global Gaming Awards Asia Pacific. Jade was awarded the Digital Operator of the Year award. Just wanted to ask you kind of, how that felt, and I guess what made you stand out, because obviously it's voted for by peers, by judges, so it's a well-deserved victory.
The the platform, we actually operate on a bet construct platform, which they were supplier of the year. So a lot of the credit needs to go to them. But then I think our relationships here in the Philippines, where we are contracted with a number of integrated resorts. We're also in some of the areas which are like e-game cafes. We are able to go into any property that's licensed by PAGCOR. We have, for the first time, brought in new products, greyhound racing, live greyhound racing from SIS, where we've got the virtual sports, Golden Race, Chiron. We're looking now at iframing, IMG Arena, and the UFC and all the UFC information, statistics, streaming. And then the next step is we have a lot of new products, prediction tools going into the platform, some micro betting, some simple overlays on our current sportsbook. For a new market, a sportsbook can be a little overwhelming. When you see all the variances and the odds, and
data heavy,
and you don't know whether to look at it in fractions or decimals or American or so we're developing some overlays which will make it very simple for the player to place bets on their phone. I believe what we have in this market is, it's by far the best in the market now. It's very attractive to look at as far as colors. We've got an excellent marketing team that work with social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and they're updating social media on a daily basis. So they're doing a great job. I believe where we want to get to, at the moment it's very good. In a year's time, it's going to be excellent.
Well, that's a good segue, actually, because I wanted to ask you one final question to round off, and I don't know if you actually already answered it, but I was going to ask. We talked a lot about the long term and sustainability, but if we were to look at kind of maybe the rest of 2023, I guess if you had some goals in mind, some nothing too internal, or financial or anything like that, but specific targets or goals, do you have any in mind that you can sort of tell the market and think this is where we want to be at the end of 2023?
End of 2023, we want to have 30 retail outlets up and running. We want to have our first Jade sports bars, which will be sports bars. We have 3 locations identified now. So we're not only going into casino properties, but also developing that side of the business as well. We want to start introducing some of these other tools, including micro betting, opinion betting, just some add-on tools onto our sportsbook. We want to have basketball fantasy launched, esports fantasy launched here, cricket live in Sri Lanka. We'd also like to have cricket live in India, and then some more retail expansion along the Indian Nepal border with sports betting as a retail operator. So
Yeah, plenty in the
oh,
pipeline, and it
yeah, so
sounds like you're taking nothing for granted.
we got 6 months.
Yeah, but no, it sounds like you're taking nothing for granted, and if just comparing your last couple of answers, if you're saying you feel you've got the best offering in the market, but you're not, you're still looking to add, and obviously that's how you've got to stay on top of the market.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever get to the point where I'm happy. I'll want to keep adding to it and improving it, and that's what will keep us ahead of the game,
Yeah,
and hopefully keep the awards coming year on year.
absolutely. Well, Joe, thanks very much for joining me. Really interesting to talk about the market, but also the company itself. And yeah, look forward to speaking to you again, I'm sure sometime soon.
Thank you, Tim. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Talk soon.